I've seen way too many people rush out and grab the cheapest spotting scope they can find, only to end up squinting at blurry birds or having to carry a second, heavier piece because the first one just can't keep up. The regret you feel when you realize you paid pennies for a lens that can't deliver the detail you need is real, and it makes you wonder if spending a bit more is actually smarter. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Swarovski Optik ATS 65 HD is the kind of tool that sits in that maybe worth the extra cash zone. It's not a budget toy you'll toss in a backpack for a weekend hike, but it's also not a laboratory-grade instrument that only belongs on a tripod in a controlled environment. It's an angled spotting scope with a 65mm objective, built for people who spend a good chunk of their free time scanning fields, woods, or wetland edges and need that extra clarity to separate a common teal from a rare pintail. What really matters in a spotting scope is how it behaves once you're out there, not just on paper. The ATS 65's angled design lets you keep your head up and eyes level when you're standing on uneven ground. I've watched a few birding groups set up on a ridgeline, and the angled eyepiece means they don't have to crane their necks over a straight tube scope. That little ergonomic tweak translates into less fatigue over a 3-hour morning watch, especially when you're tracking a flock that's constantly shifting altitude. It also makes it easier to use while wearing a hat or a baseball cap, something you rarely think about until you're trying to keep the sun out of your view. Optical performance is where Swarovski usually shines, and the HD glass in the ATS 65 lives up to that reputation. In low-light conditions, think dawn or dusk, the image stays surprisingly bright and retains color fidelity. I've seen videos of people using similar-sized scopes and getting washed-out reds. With this one, the greens and browns of a wetland stand stay distinct enough that you can actually tell a juvenile from an adult duck without a second look. That level of detail is a real advantage for hunters who need to make quick identification decisions, and for field researchers who are logging species data. But the strengths come with trade-offs that are easy to overlook until you're holding the thing in your hands. The 65mm objective brings a decent amount of light, but it also adds bulk. The scope's body feels solid. Swarovski doesn't skimp on quality, but it's noticeably heavier than a 50mm model you might see in a lower price tier. For someone who plans to hike long distances, the extra weight could be a deterrent, especially if you're already lugging binoculars, a field guide, and a water bottle. The dimensions mean it fits nicely into a standard spotting scope bag, but you'll still need a sturdy shoulder strap or a dedicated carry case if you want to keep your hands free. Another practical consideration is the price. Swarovski optics sit at a premium spot in the market, and the ATS 65 is no exception. If you're a casual birdwatcher who only pops out on weekends, you might get more mileage out of a less expensive 60mm scope that still offers respectable clarity. The ATS 65 really shines for people who are going to put serious hours into it: seasonal birders, professional wildlife photographers, or hunters who need consistent performance across varied lighting. In those scenarios, the cost spreads across many outings, and the investment feels justified by the reduced need to upgrade or replace a subpar instrument. The scope's focus mechanism is smooth and holds its position well, which matters when you're following a moving subject. I've seen hunters describe focus creep as a nightmare when a bird takes off and the image blurs. The ATS 65's lockup system minimizes that, letting you lock and focus on a perched raptor and then track it as it swoops down. It also comes with a set of eye cups that let you adjust for diopters, a small but often overlooked feature that can make the difference between a crisp view and a strained eye after hours of observation. On the downside, the angled eyepiece can feel a bit unfamiliar if you've only used straight tube scopes. There's a short learning curve to get the correct eye relief, especially if you wear glasses. Once you adjust, it works fine, but that initial adjustment period might frustrate newcomers who expect a plug-and-play experience. Also, the ATS 65 doesn't include a built-in Barlow lens or an interchangeable eyepiece system, so you're stuck with the native magnification range. If you need higher power for distant subjects like distant mountain peaks, you'll have to pair it with an external Barlow or look for a scope with a broader range. So, who should click Add to Cart on the ATS 65? If you're a dedicated birdwatcher who spends early mornings in the field, a hunter who counts on accurate identification for ethical shot placement, or a researcher who